Hi, I'm Chelsea Corley. My business is now under the name of Kinexology. We were the integrated teaching system, and I have a Pilates studio that was the integrated Pilates studio. They kind of all, I had the studio first, and then I was like, I'm going to do this online courses based off of my degree in motor learning and control that I received from Columbia.
Mhm.
And that's how that happened. But then I realized that I really needed to bring this all under one roof and have this all under one brand because they all intercorrelate with one another. I
Yes.
utilize everything that I teach in my online courses for teachers in my teaching of students every single day. So
Yes.
um, they are the same and they should be under the same brand. So that's
Yeah.
now we're Kinexology.
Amazing. I'm sorry. Insight Plies was asking to repeat the podcast info. So yeah, it's called the Mind Leadership. So what I'll do is I'll probably just put it in the body of the description when I repost this later because yeah, it'll disappear if I write it out. So the Mind Leadership podcast is the one that I was on. Um, so Chelsea, one of the things you were saying earlier when we were talking about like you're passionate about motor learning and then the different pieces of your business and then
Mm-hmm.
rebranding and stuff. We're so in love with everything that we do that I find it's difficult to let one go to allow the other one to have recognition or space or whatever. So I don't really want to let it go, but I just want to put some more focus over here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like choosing which child you love more in a sense, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard. And, but the reality was I had to let some things, I had to restructure things so I could let go of some things in my studio so that I
Right.
had more time for me um, to be able to devote to these other little facets that are in my business. So
Right.
we changed our structure, and through this pandemic, which has been, an interesting time, but this virtual
Mhm.
Pilates thing, it works. And I now have a virtual studio. So I have three
Amazing.
instructors that went through our What You Say Matters course, and they're all
Yes.
excellent. And
Yeah.
they're in our virtual studio. One's from California, Olivia from the Pilates Teachers
Yes.
Manual.
Yeah.
She's a teacher, and she's in Chicago. And then my friend Meg is another one, and she's in New York. So I think what I'm so
Awesome.
excited about this is now, I'm all about learning. And I think I know a lot, but I don't know it all.
Mhm.
And I'm really excited for my clients to now, who are at the studio, to be able to work with other teachers and learn and grow and have different
Yes.
perspectives. And it's just, they've been working with me forever. So I'm just so thrilled. Not that I don't love that,
No, but
but
just to have a fresh set of eyes on them is always
yeah,
good, right?
exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. So it's
absolutely.
going to be a real team based approach. And I think that that's just something that I'm just super, super, super excited about.
Hmm. So what did you have to let go in the last piece to get here?
So, what did I have to let go? That's a good question. So I had to let go of basically like in a way, like the control. So
Mhm.
I used to be someone who, with my clients, because it was just me, right, teaching. If
Yeah.
somebody was like, hey, I need to change to this time, do you mind? I need to do this, do you mind? And I would do it, right? They're my
Yeah.
clients, they've been seeing me for years. So I really had to let go of that and let go of the fact that some people aren't going to be thrilled with me that I raised my rates. Some people aren't going to be thrilled with me that I'm changing my schedule, and it's
Yes.
going to be okay. And
Yes.
there were some people who weren't thrilled with me, but everyone else was very supportive and understood. And
Right.
the fact that I was able to set a schedule and have these set hours and set time apart, or I had a set time for me to be able to work on all the other elements and facets of my business.
Hmm.
Um, so letting go of being a people pleaser was something I had to do.
Yes. Scary, isn't
It is. It's hard.
it? That's honestly because, and that's the thing, right? The quicker we can get over the opinions of other people, the quicker we can get on with our lives and do what we're really called to do. Um,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah,
It's hard.
yes.
Have you had to be in that position too of just
Oh yeah, I
Yeah.
mean it's a challenge, right? Because like we clothe it in. We really want to help people. We don't want to
Right.
hurt their feelings, sort of thing. But the reality is that we don't want them to not like us, like
Right.
right? Like let's be real, right? So we want people to like us. We want us to be. We want to have that sense of people come to us because we're really nice and we're really doing. We help them reach their goals and stuff. But there's also something to be said for bringing people along on the journey so they see where you're going, and if it means that if it does mean that you have to up the rates or see them one less day a week so that you can actually move to the next thing, your
Mm-hmm.
real people are excited to go on that journey with you, right?
Yep.
And I've had people that my second client ever I still see like from like 18, 20 years ago now. Like she still comes to me
Wow.
and she's seen this progression. And she's traveled every gym I've gone to and every move I've made and every time I've shifted my schedule. Like she's like, just don't move to the States because I can't go there. But but she's like anything else, like she's here. So yeah, I've gone through that. That's a struggle. I mean, that's like Pilates mirrors our everyday lives. Like we have to get to that place where we're doing what is true to us and not what appeases the opinions of other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, and when we were talking the last time, we were talking about your business coach, and it's no secret that all the successful people I've had on here have had some sense of mentoring, coaching, some
Mm-hmm.
formal, some like another set of eyes on their business.
Yeah.
So I think that it's cool that you did this, and making this huge pivot is an example of just the benefit that having someone speaking into your life and into your business is, right?
Oh yeah, and she actually just logged in to watch. So hi, Kelly.
All right, all right.
So, but that's the thing about Kelly that's so amazing and has helped me so much is like here she tuned in to support me, right? Like,
Yes.
um, she supports everything and every decision and respects my opinion of it too. And we're able to have a real honest conversation. And I think it's important to find someone who fills in the gaps where I'm not as strong. So I'm not
Mm,
maybe the best at looking at this huge big picture and understanding how like what's achievable. But I'm
yes.
very good at being if you give me a task to achieve, I will absolutely execute it and I'll get it done on time and we'll be there. But
Yes.
I so it's important, I think, to surround yourself with people who think differently than you do too and see things differently because that's just how you develop a better team.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's exactly it. Like staffing to your weaknesses instead of thinking that you could be all things to all people.
Right.
That's
Right.
a huge like that's a key to failure right there.
Yeah.
Long time. What's keys to success? Don't do that because
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's true. I just remember we were talking about a minute ago about this whole thing with like letting go of certain things to elevate other things. When someone who's really helping me out at the time was helping me to develop this like real men do Pilates thing,
Mm-hmm.
and the handles, and she was like, own that every handle space like that needs, even though it's out there public domain, I want you to own that space,
Yep.
right? And as much as I was doing personal training and I was teaching with TRX and I was a master trainer for Viper and do all these different things, it was just like Pilates, real men do Pilates, make everything about real men do Pilates, to the point where I dove so deep in it. I think I posted doing like a workout one day and someone's like, oh, you still work out? I was like, yeah, I still work out. Like really, like like I'd gotten everything out of the way so much that people forgot that I did anything else but that, just to
That's
get people
interesting.
to, yeah. And I just say that to say, like, like when we're trying to dive deep on something and get people to recognize that this is our niche and this is the thing we're passionate about,
Yeah.
we have to let go of other things that we really, really like to give room for that thing that we really, really love.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, so it's an interesting process. So it's been neat to watch this transition for you with that.
Yeah. And I think, and I've learned so much too from feedback from teachers about like what they feel the support that they need or things that maybe they feel that are missing in their teaching or things they want to learn more about. And so what I'm super excited about that I'm working on is this lab. So we'll have the Kinexology lab.
Yes. Yeah.
And
Very cool.
I yeah, so it'll be like there'll be a monthly topic on motor learning that we'll do it through Zoom. We have interactive questions with it, breakout rooms so that you can really connect with other Pilates instructors from all over who are participating.
Amazing.
And you have access to this material forever, right? So it's just going to be ongoing. And what I'm really excited about for this too is not only has motor learning really influenced and changed my teaching for the better, in the sense that, you know, I feel so much more confident as a teacher, and I can see progress with my clients, and it just filled in the gaps that I needed from my training program. That I just felt like, I was like, why? I just felt like something was totally missing. And I was like, why am I not getting this? And then this really filled the gaps. And so I want to help that with other teachers too. But this is a way that we can kind of go about it in a very exploratory way, in a community-based way. And also, I'm going to, because I think you can learn from everyone. We'll have some outside speakers too, like from the motor learning field, who are doing some specific research that is really great and happening right now, and just physical therapists, other things, just to try to kind of be more well-rounded in our understanding, especially with their different perspectives on similar topics.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Can you back up like one step and explain to people what motor learning is? Because I think that like, you're so excited about it, and it looks like it's a solution for a lot of what we deal with. So I'd love for you to just unpack that for a moment so people understand what it is.
Yes, of course. Yes, because I'm always like, I just love this. It's great. So motor learning is a science that teaches you it studies how people learn, refine, and retain movement. So that's what we do all day long as Pilates teachers, right? We teach people movement, we help them refine it, and we really want them to be able to retain it. And the retention part is the part that I find very fascinating and interesting, especially in the Pilates terms of this, because a lot of the ways that we teach, it's actually hard to tell if your clients retain something or not. And skill transferability too, right? We want people to learn. People usually, I mean, I've had the experience that people usually come to Pilates because they have an outside goal. It's not really to become the most expert Pilates doer ever. Maybe that's their goal. But usually they have something else, like they're using cross training for an athlete, or I had someone who she wanted to be able to pick up her kids because she had all these surgeries, and that was her goal, to be able to pick up her children.
Sure. Yeah.
So there are measurable goals, and how can we take what we're doing in Pilates that's very abstract in some ways, and have those people be able to transfer those skills into their everyday life?
Yes.
But if there isn't retention of those skills, that transfer can't happen.
Right. And that measurable, because it's so obscure, it's like, that's what I'm saying to someone. Wow, your roll-up looks really good today. Wow, your roll-up looks better than yesterday. So what is that better? Like, it's not like your bench press was 185 pounds and now it's 195 pounds. Right.
So this is where I program probably a little bit differently. And I think I don't really just look at the roll up with the quality of the movement. Yes, the quality will improve over time, but there's different phases of learning. So there's the first stage of learning, the cognitive phase. So you're really the person. It's going to be like when you're first teaching someone to roll up, it's very choppy, right? You have to give a ton of verbal feedback to tell them what they should be doing, which is understandable, right? Because they don't know what to do. And then you move into this associative phase, and that choppiness is a little bit less. They're still making some mistakes, but you can tell that they're starting to kind of remember the choreography of what to do, but it's not perfect by any means. But our goal is to get people into the autonomous phase where you just say, roll up. Go. And they're able to do it. But I feel like a lot of the times it's very hard for us as teachers to, reduce our feedback. Like I've noticed that a lot of people teach as if their clients are always in that cognitive phase, the first phase, giving a ton of feedback to that person, but not letting that person sit with what they're being asked to do. Watch them do it and see if they make a mistake or not, or whatever's going to happen, and trying to control the movement verbally for the person. So with that, it's that's where it's challenging to get to that autonomous phase. But going back to how I would look at someone's roll up to show a measurable gain. Basically, a roll up is a very complex exercise. There's a lot of different biomechanical skills and skills that have to happen together for the roll up to be achieved.
Yes.
So maybe that person has a hard time with their pelvic stability when they're coming up, or maybe they have a very weak transverse abdominals and they can't pull in, they constantly push out. Mm-hmm. So the way that I program is I look at the skills and see what skills they're able to achieve or having a hard time with. And that is how you can utilize the system to help address those skills that they need help with.
So, and what you mean by that practically then is to say, like, you take them out of that roll up, let's work on an exercise that is going to improve your spinal flexion, and then come back to rope and see how that's improved the quality of the movement.
Yep.
Okay. So
very much that you can break down these, there's something in motor learning theory too called that's been studied. It's simple versus complex skills. So every complex skill it's like a roll up, right? There's a lot of moving pieces.
Yes.
You can break down those exercises into simple skills and have them practice those individual simple skills that are the building blocks.
Yes.
And slowly progress them to make them slightly more challenging, meaning that there's slightly more degrees of freedom, which just means more complexity, more body parts moving in space.
Yes.
For them to build up to their roll up.
So if I was to take this to the fitness floor, it'd be like a burpee where I could say, okay, we're going to do squats.
Yep.
Okay, and now we're going to go do a lie down to stand up. Okay, now we're going to do a plank. Okay, now we're going to do a push-up. Now we're going to do a plank to hopping your feet in. And then just like unpacking all the different elements.
Correct.
And then half an hour later, let's put all those pieces together and voila, we've done a burpee.
Correct. And that process might take months.
Yeah.
It might take, if you have an athlete or whoever, you know what I mean? It might take a half an hour. It really does depend on the skills of the client and their prior experience. That's a huge influencer on skills and how easily people learn movement. And if they're, I'm sure everyone's had their fair share of, like, I call them the motor morons. And I don't say that to them, but
I have funny memory.
So it's very hard, and they don't know where their body is in space. So they're going to take a much longer time to build up to that skill, but they still can do it. It's just going to take a little longer. They're going to be in that cognitive phase a lot longer.
A lot longer. I had a client back in the day that I was trying to teach him to do just a leg raise on a decline bench. And you know that the handle overhead, so you have to kind of slide. So he'd roll down and he'd hit his head. And I'm like, okay, careful. And he's like, oh, whatever. We do the exercise. Second set, okay, watch your head, bang, hits his head again. And then the third time going down, bang, hits his head again. And almost every time he would, I'm like, is there no proprioception? Is there no at all?
I have a client, and when I was teaching at Equinox, and I was a teacher trainer there, and I had this one client, and I would tell all of my students, I'm like, this is a perfect example. Keep your foot on the pedal of the electric chair, always, because he would jump off every time.
Yes.
I've been teaching him forever.
Right.
Jumped right off.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
There are a fair share of those.
There are. So with that, though, at the same time, I'm just curious because we always talk about guys loving Pilates because even though there's a different measurable, it isn't that same, my bench press was 185, now it's 195. There's still this sense of achieving and that autonomous movement, all these different things that clicks for us. In terms of this motor learning theory, is there different applications for men and women that in terms of the way that you present it, where it would resonate more with them in the way that you teach or present?
That's a good question. In terms of neurologically, how we all learn movement, it's the same. Men and women, it's the same. I mean, men have a different capabilities just because you guys are taller and have different center of masses, you know what I mean? Stuff like that, usually stronger upper body. However, it doesn't mean that men learn skills faster than women or vice versa. But but the way that you would kind of cue and program for men and women, I do it a little bit differently, just because of your experiences. So usually, like with men, I do say like, okay, so if they worked out at the gym, I might compare the exercises a little bit more and try to get some skill transferability from either the sports they play or working out on the gym floor to Pilates, and that's helpful for them. So that's kind of how I would maybe have a difference between that.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. And that's not even necessarily a gender style. That's just a person's style too, right? So I mentioned that yesterday in the podcast too, and for this guy who had no experience with Pilates at all, I was explaining to the difference between the styles of how we get men into the Pilates space, where sometimes women will say, oh, when I have a strong guy come into a Pilates session, I'm just gonna crush him so he realizes that Pilates can be a good workout too. I'm just gonna just make him sweat and just kill this guy. And then there's others who will say, I just want to make him feel good. So when he walks out and his gait's different or his spine feels freer, he'll come back because he just feels good. So there's a sense of, there's just almost two styles to kind of roping men into Pilates. One is just bury them with the first workout, and the other is like make them feel better than they've ever felt before. Let them touch their toes for the first time in 10 years after the first session, and then they're like, I'm in. Right. So I don't know. I don't know how that ties into motor learning, but like I just feel like there's some kind of connection there.
For sure. And I think a lot of that you have to read the person, right? So I think in terms of motor learning, that's where like the motivation of the client is huge. And motivation is a huge impact for learning. Or influence for learning. So if somebody, if it's their goal to touch their toes, I'm not going to crush them with a workout. And I might, want them to feel better and feel good. If there's a professional athlete though, and they really want to work hard, I still don't like to, personally, my teaching style, I don't give 1,000 exercises and crush people. I'm very much more specific of looking at where their imbalances are and challenging them throughout that exercise, and then finding that one weakness and then carrying it out throughout the whole workout. So so then you're working.
I'd still call that crushing the person.
Yeah, still crushing them.
I'm like, that would hurt, Chelsea.
Yeah, it's still, okay, it still is crushing them, but in like my nice way of doing it.
Smart way of doing it, yes.
Yeah, but and explaining to them if they're experiencing or they're being asked to retrieve the same correction or whatever it may be throughout this huge variety of exercises. And that is how you get skill transferability. So it's actually a part of motor learning. It's a very, it's a good way to be able to get people to learn how to autocorrect. Because they need to experience it in 1,000 environments. You can't just do the 100 the same way every time. I mean, you can, but that's not going to help them outside of the studio.
Right. Yeah. But then using that 100 the same way every single time also gives them feedback on their progress, no?
It does, but it does. However, the real way to test a retention is having them be able to transfer it in a new environment.
In new environments.
Yeah. So their body will adapt and become really super good at doing that 100 with 4 springs and the same exact rhythm and everything. They're really good at that. And that's great, and they do know how to do that. But the next step of them being able to transfer skills or have more retention is by challenging it and putting it in different varieties and different environments.
That's interesting. Like, I'm gonna read this comment in a second, but that just resonates with me in terms of just teaching my sons to play sports, right? And you see that with 14-year-old basketball players, if the only sport they played their whole life is basketball, they're not athletes, they're just basketball players. They need to be able to transfer those skills to different environments for them to be able to be truly competent, right? So that's kind of the dialogue we have, is like, you don't want to just be a hockey player, you want to be an athlete. You don't want to just be a tennis player, you want to be an athlete.
Mhm.
sort of thing. Yeah. Anyway, so a couple comments here I just want to get to.
Yeah.
Crystal says, high performance coach in speed skating. I am relating the Pilates exercise and principles to technical improvements on and off ice. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
great. Yeah.
Yeah. Just don't stop. My thought is, if you're an athlete, then you're already crushing each workout. Shouldn't be trying to give them what Pilates can give them, and that regular workout shouldn't be. Oh yeah, so yeah, shouldn't we be trying to give them what Pilates can give them, and not what the regular workouts can give them? Yeah. So that's, I guess that's that transferable skills piece, right?
Yep.
There's a comment earlier. Bree is Movement Design Lab. And she just said, "LOL, can I keep liking this convo?" She said something earlier about being a PhD in movement earlier. Where was that comment? Yes, motor learning and control, fellow PhD movement geek right here. There you go. So that's Movement Design Lab. So what's going on? Yes. Yeah, so that was really cool. I was going to say something else with that. Oh, yes, motivation. We talk about motivation a lot and try and kind of philosophize exactly what motivation is. So based on your informed approach, how do you define motivation?
That's a great question. So in terms of I really feel like motivation is, for me, or for what I've noticed with my clients, is like their end goal, or not their end goal, but their goal at the moment, right? That's obviously what I've noticed of working with clients for years. I'm sure you've noticed this too, especially with your client who you've had for 20 years. Their goals constantly change and evolve as they change and evolve.
Yes.
And so I had a client, and I actually just started teaching her virtually only. I've never met her in person, but I see her 3 times a week virtually. Which is amazing. And it was her goal to be able to do a plank. She couldn't do it.
Yes.
And we worked on the building the skills and the strength and the awareness, proprioception, all those things. And she can do it now. But it's not that she's done with Pilates now. So now she's like, well, now since I achieved that goal, now I can do a side plank and I can do this. And so it's constantly evolved. So I think just really understanding your client of like why they're here, what they want to do, why did they even start Pilates in the first, or want to try it in the first place, is a huge place to kind of dive in to see where their specific motivation is.
Right.
For example, like my motivation for doing Pilates is before I had a bad hip, and then I 4 years ago had hip surgery on that hip. So my goal in Pilates is not to be crushed in the sense of like having this crazy, insane workout and doing all these super advanced exercises. I just want to be able to stay balanced so I don't have to get my hip replaced eventually. Right. Yeah. So that's my motivation is longevity. So,
right.
Yeah, I think motivation can be a bunch of different things for people.
So can we actually motivate people, or are we just unearthing their own motivations?
So I think we can be a facilitator of the motivation by being positive and like encouraging and supportive, and have them feel like it's a very much a teamwork mentality, that we're in this together. That's how I always approach my sessions. And I think that that can help someone feel motivated to keep on going.
Right.
But I don't know, but if someone is not motivated to work, I mean, there are clients that, I'll use Equinox for an example, just because we would get these comp sessions come in and they'd try it because it was a free thing, and you would have to convert them. I could give them the best workout ever, but if they weren't motivated to do work or have some little inkling of why they maybe wanted to do it, it was very hard to convert that person.
Right. So then in that case, if I was your Pilates manager and I saw that someone walked away after your demo session, would you be asking the person, like, how good were you at figuring out what their why was? Like, were you able to get to their motivating point? Like, is it more so that we didn't do a good job of connecting, or they're not motivated?
Right. Like, yeah. And I think that's when I was managing the team there, that's what we would always talk about. I'm like, the beginning of figuring out why this person's here, why they decided to try. 'Cause there's tons of people who would get the free session and just not ever use it.
Right. Exactly.
So why did they come in? I think that's something that's very important, and will give you a lot of insight into what the potential motivation is there for your client, or what their, like you said, what their why is.
Yeah. That's fascinating. I know I saw something about motivation on your page. I was like, oh, I gotta ask her about that because I'd love to get your perspective on that.
Yeah.
It is an interesting dialogue, right? Because I mean, and everyone as teachers too, there's certain things that motivate us, right? So I know people who love what I call those court ordered people. Like you go to your doctor and they say that at 50 you're gonna die and you're 48, so you better start exercising. So they show up and they're like, okay, impress me. I know teachers who love those people because they're just so excited to get those people turned on to movement. And then there's people who love like athletes who just come in and they just want to just grind out from start to finish. And you have to engage them in conversation because we want to talk to you, right?
Right.
So everyone has people that they're motivated by as well. So I think it's just, there's so many different elements to that I'm always fascinated to find out what people's perspective is on motivation in our world. So yeah.
It's very interesting.
Mm-hmm. I was going to ask you earlier about when we were talking about that process and changing things up, like you said in your post about, for clients. So it's one thing to unpack a roll up so they could do it better. How do you progress people through a workout? How do we change things up, as you say, so they can continue to progress?
So like what I mean by change things up is definitely in a motor learning, from my expert opinion of a motor learning perspective, like you're not just going to give someone something just because. You want to have a systematic reason of a why. What's your why and your explanation of what you're really wanting them to achieve. So how I change up and progress people is maybe sometimes I just won't give them feedback at all. And I say, okay, let's do your roll up. So it might not sound like it's a progression, but it is, because they have to be responsible for that now.
Yes.
And that's a true retention test of trying to see if they can do it or not. It's very interesting. You'll learn a lot about your client and realize how much they might rely on you a lot.
Yes. Right.
And it's
and
it's our job to have to learn how to taper back your feedback. And there's tons of research on how to do that in a systematic way that you can still be you as a teacher, but it'll help promote their learning a lot quicker. So they'll become into that autonomous phase a lot faster.
Yeah.
But another way that I also, I try to figure out how to do it on different pieces of apparatus. So it's hard. This is what's been so interesting about this virtual reality that we now live in.
You can't take them over to their tower in their house.
No. So I've had to use props, which is great. So like, and like from a Ramana's perspective, we don't really like props, right? So this has been challenging me in a good way. And we've had to use like little hand weights or a magic circle. My one, not saying to do this, but my other client, her cat lays on her. So we figure out how to, and this cat's 16 pounds. And so the cat has been a fraud, but no cats were hurt in the process. But I've had to change that. Or what I'll do for progression too, and this is more so just for retention, is I change the order. The Pilates piece will come after me, but I'll change the order, and that changes how they. It really does change how the person experiences it, because they're so used to their body feeling exhausted to a certain point. And that's something that in the motor learning research is called randomized versus blocked practice or serial practice. So if you look at the mat order or the order of the Pilates exercises, if you do it all continuously, it's really blocked practice. Even though discreetly each exercise is randomized in a way. But if you change the order, doing it from, I mean, I wouldn't do this on the reformer, and you have to be careful with what exercise, with how warmed up you are, of course.
How warmed up, right.
But if you change the order, or even just do it on the left side first of initiating everything, it completely changes how they have to retain and think about the exercises.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Those are fun things to watch people struggle with.
They're like, you're so mean, and it's like,
I'm just making you better.
Yeah, exactly. It's just it's a brain. I mean, without the brain being present and us addressing how the brain moves our body, there's just no change. So I'm very much a proponent of giving our clients kind of some brain teasers while they're exercising, to make them think. And that's what's going to help create the stronger neural pathways. Because just like an athlete, like what you were saying, like for a basketball player, they want to be able to experience every single possible situation in any environment for playing basketball, because then whenever they're performing, they're able to retrieve on all those prior experiences and be ready for go time.
Yes. Right.
And that's, interesting.
Nice person, mean trainer. Yep. That's pretty much what we do. That's so good. That's exactly it. I love that. Your what you say matters workshop. Do you still teach that?
Yeah. So it's still on demand. So I just got off yesterday a Zoom call with someone from Ireland taking it, which is
amazing.
Which is amazing and super cool and so nice to meet all these different people. So that's still on demand. And that's all been rebranded and everything, just with our name. Same great content, same course, just different name.
Nice.
And that What You Say Matters course, it's a 6-week course where I help you through these modules, teaching you, and you have to do self-reflection on your teaching. It's very much of us looking at ourselves as teachers. I think we often will take a ton of Pilates sessions, which is great because we need to do that. But when do we ever film ourselves teaching and actually can watch ourselves teaching and working on that aspect of it? So that's what this is really about. And like I mentioned previously, where I was talking about how there's a systematic way to reduce your feedback. This course teaches you how to do that from a beginner learner, so your cognitive phase, to that autonomous phase, which is what we want to get people to go in. And so that's what that course talks about.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Do you have other courses? I mean, I've pushed that course a couple times. That's the must buy course, but do you have other courses? Yeah. Is that your main one?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's Virtual Virtuoso, which is like, I did it in the beginning of the pandemic because I was like, this pandemic hit and only people can use verbal feedback. And that's what my thesis was on. So I'm going to share this to the community. And so it's like a snippet of What You Say Matters. It's not as intense. You're not getting the same feedback from me or the self-reflection piece of it, but you get some information, which is helpful. And then the other course that we have is called The Aging Client, and how we learn movement changes as we age. So if you have a novice older client just first starting Pilates, or you have an experienced older client, the way that your verbal feedback is for that person influences their learning, and they learn differently.
Yeah. Interesting. It's so funny. Like we intuitively know that, but don't know what to do with that, and probably don't recognize when we need to apply that.
Right. Exactly. And it's, I and a lot of my clients are older. It just happens that they are, and I notice, like, when I'm looking at my programming between my 30-year-olds and then my 70-year-olds, it is different how I have to cue them, but it doesn't mean that they can't learn new things. It just, the way that our brain changes as we age changes the way that we process the information. Yes. Which is kind of sad with this aging process thing, but it's just amazing how our brains adapt. And I think it's really important information to learn about, you know what I mean? And we do so much stuff on osteoporosis, which is important. I don't mean that it isn't, but when do we really talk about like brain health of aging? Right. Yeah, it's true. So there's fantastic. That. Yeah. And there's more courses, hopefully, to come. So I have a whole list of ones that I want to do. So that's in the future, but I want to get this lab up and running first before I start adding on more courses. But anyone who would, we're starting a wait list for the lab. So if you look at the link in my bio on Kinexology, you can sign up for the wait list for it, because I'm only offering it to an exclusive number of teachers to start. Okay. And then all of those teachers, or anybody who's a part of the lab, will get exclusive discounts to all of their online courses for the Kinexology method, which is where all of our online courses will live. Wow. That's impressive, businesswoman. Thank you. I couldn't have done it alone.
I know.
So, but it's we've been working on this since August.
Yeah.
So it's really cool to see it come to life, and it just made so much sense just to have it all together. And I want to be able to bring motor learning and help students of Pilates grow and teachers of Pilates grow, right?
Right.
So it's supposed to be a very inclusive community.
That's awesome. This is such a celebration of our different gifts and talents and passions and all that stuff, right? Like, I mean, you do that so well, and yeah, I'm more inclined to be like, well, I'm gonna write the same course and sell it to my people. It's like, no, I'm just gonna pass everyone off to you because that is just so cool, as Olivia said there too. Like that's legit. Nice.
Thanks.
Can we talk about the speed networking thing last weekend?
Oh my God, so much fun.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was super fun.
I was like Pilates fangirling. It was super fun. And like you did such a great job putting that together. Like that's something that like I wish I could like figure out and do and whatever. And like I would be like, oh, we're gonna do this. And I would not, that's not where my skill set lies. Like you did such a great job at that. It was amazing. It was so much fun.
Great.
Did you meet a ton of different people, or was it pretty much a lot of people that you knew that signed up for it, or did it extend further out?
Yeah, it extended further out. So there was one, two, I think it was about, I just met 12 people. Like I had time to get through 12 people, and probably about 4 or 5 of them I'd never met before. And some of those people I'd seen, I think Design Movement Lab was one of those people that I'd seen their name or seen their handle, but didn't know who Bree was, right? So then we started talking, and they're like, "Oh, that's you!" Right? So I had some of those moments, but overall, it was fantastic. Yeah, so someone asking how did the speed networking work? The speed networking was a video, basically like video calling. Randomly selected calls for 5 minutes with a bunch of people who signed up. So there was actually 90 people registered for it, and which is fantastic. So it just randomly selects people, and then the names popped up, and then you just had a quick conversation with them, talked about what you do, who you are, and and then it just locked you off, and you have to move on to the next person, or you could press that extend button and keep that conversation going, right?
Yeah, it was interesting. Like I don't think I met quite as many people because we kept on extending because our conversations were so great, which was so nice to make a connection with people, and it was really fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's I think that definitely is a passion for me, is just to get all these people connected, because it was it was fascinating. It was so Zoom, IG, FaceTime, actually Hop-In was the platform that we used for it. And but yeah, I mean, Chelsea, you're doing great work. Like I think that this Say What Matters is such a cool much needed workshop, and I think more people need to know that that's out there. You know, because like even for someone like myself, like my background in counseling, I get this stuff, but I don't have it labeled the same way you do. I don't have it packaged the same way you do. And the way you package it makes so much sense to me. So I think that intuitively, we as instructors know that this is something we should do, but don't know how to package it properly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I think what was like, for example, talking to this woman yesterday who was going through the course in Ireland, she was like, I didn't realize that I say good or great or whatever, which is good to be motivating, but in a motor learning terms of like, what's good? So like I had a client, I used to teach him, and I was like, oh, that's good. He's like, yes, that, you know, it feels really great. Like when my hip like my hip flexor is cramping a ton. I'm like, oh, that's not great. Okay. But I was just cueing some new movement, but he had no idea what was good and what to try to achieve for the next time. Right. So the more specific and clear we can be to people and be communicators like that, which is probably also another reason I think why this makes so much sense to you too, because with your counseling, I'm sure it's a lot of communication. You're a great communicator, and it's about how to make yourself as clear as possible.
Yes.
To help someone understand what they're trying to achieve.
Right.
But people have really realized that they go off of a script, and it and you can kind of check out. And which is, I understand when you're teaching a ton of clients, but at the same time, like I don't feel like I need all these millions of exercises to give people, because I'm so tuned into what they're doing, and it's so, I'm so much more focused, that every session's like a different puzzle piece.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Before I got into Pilates, I was always attracted to personal trainers who would, unpack a squat for the entire session. So like instead of doing 14 exercises in the hour, they did one. And they kept getting them to work through ankle mobility, then try that again and roll this out, then try that again, then go over here and do that again. You know what I mean? So I've always been attracted to that, just large to small with exercises. So yeah, so I think that's, it made sense to me, and I'm sure that there's a ton of people out there that this will make sense to. So good for you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's awesome. So at this point, you have your workshop, the labs coming up.
We have our studio. So
Studio.
our physical studio will be being built.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So we meet with the architects today about that. So I have a home studio, so we're just putting it over our garage now. But and then but then we have our virtual platform too. So you can work with other Kinexology teachers who have the same philosophy, same understanding of cueing, and looking at the body, which I think is kind of awesome that all these women have very diverse and specific niche of what they're great at. And but we all have this thing that ties us together of understanding how to cue and to teach and using motor learning and using the science. So our studio, our little tagline is, we're a classical studio with a scientific twist. So
that's spicy.
But it's cool. I'm very excited about it. So it'll be there's a lot of moving pieces, but it all feels like it all belongs in a home. So that's what we want for this Kinexology. It's a new home for all of our things that were all loose ended all over the place, and now we're all in one place.
That's awesome. Well, I'm cheering for you, and I'm just watching this all unfold, and I'm excited for you. So
thanks.
Keep it going.
Thank you.
Yes. All right. Well, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and thank you to all these amazing comments. I wasn't ignoring you. I was totally enthralled with this more learning conversation. Tara Rose, to see you. Insight Flies, thank you so much. Yeah, you guys are all doing awesome work out there. So keep cheering one another on. And thanks, Chelsea.
Thank you. Thanks. And thanks again for I love these core conversations. I'm so sad that I always teach at 10 o'clock. So I try to pop on, and then my clients on Zoom, and then they're late, and then I have to log off. And so I try to catch whatever I can, but I love the replays.
Yes, thanks. The podcast for this week is Tasha Edwards and I, and it was her live that I used and just recycled it because it was such an engaging conversation around everything that's happening in our world. So if you get a chance to check that out, it's a really interesting perspective. That's really all I could say about it. It was therapeutic for me.
I can't wait to listen.
Yeah, cool. All right, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.